Good evening, and welcome to Kopernik. Actually, going to turn myself up here just a little bit. Let me see, handheld. Here we go. All right. Well, welcome again. My name is Drew Desker. I'm the director here at Kopernik. It's great to have a nice crew here, and it's also nice is to see a bunch of new faces here. So, by show of hands, who's here for the first time or not for your fourth grade field trip? All right. Who here are members? All right, pretty much the rest of the people then. All right, well, one of the things that I always like to do, make people aware of is that Kopernik Observatory, we belong to what's called the ASTC, Association of Science and Technology Centers. And so your Kopernik membership gets you into any of our Friday night programs like this evening. But also, you can take that membership card and you can go to over 350 other science centers throughout the country. You can go to Robertson, you can go to the Corning Museum of Glass, the Franklin Institute down in Philly, or the Intrepid down in New York City. So if you like this kind of place, having a Kopernik membership, it would be to your advantage. Also, for those of you who might have children that might or grandchildren that might be interested in some of our summer camps, a Kopernik membership, a family or grandparent Kopernik membership gives you a 15% discount on our camps. So let me just go. I'm going to talk just a little bit, especially for those people that are new. Again, we've been around for over 50 years. We opened in 1974, and as a public observatory, and we are also an informal STEM education facility, so that during the school year, a lot of school groups will come up here for curriculum enhancement. And we have, as I mentioned earlier, we have a fairly extensive summer camp program that actually, as it turns out, that's under summer camps. And actually, the registration for that will open up tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. So if you got, and our summer camps are for students who will be entering second and third grade in the fall, all the way through high school. And we have a number of camps. These are week-long day camps here. So if you have somebody you know that might be interested, check out the our offerings here for our summer camps. But one of the things that I really enjoy a lot about Kopernik is our Friday night programs. Okay, why is there we go. Every Friday night we do a public program of from March to mid-December, we do a public program on some aspect of science and technology. And right now our program this evening actually starts out our 2026 season with the evolution of VR, virtual reality. But if you go to our website, you'll learn. Actually, next week we're doing a talk on the spring skies. What can you expect to see in the sky during the spring? The week after that, we actually have some engineers from Lockheed Martin, who Lockheed Martin has a contract that they're building the Orion space capsule that's part of the Artemis mission going to the moon. Well, in Owego, they are actually writing the software for the cockpit, the glass cockpit. And so those engineers are going to be up here talking about what they're doing locally to advance the space program. Let's see here. What other things we're going to mention? For those that are here on site, we actually have a lovely quilt that was donated to us that we will be raffling off actually at our Astrofest event in September. So definitely check that out, and if that has some appeal for you, you can buy those tickets at our gift shop. And then finally, want to welcome those watching on the live stream. Again, all of our Friday night programs we put on a live stream, and so for those that can't make it up here on any particular evening, you could watch it on a YouTube channel, and you can ask questions through the chat. But also, if you even can't make it on Friday, you can at least watch it later on. So if you actually go to our YouTube channel, you'll actually be able to see 5 years or 6 years worth of talks, and you can see that not everything is always about astronomy. Although we clearly, we do focus a lot on about that. But we had a talk about the FNL, which is an area down in Brazil. We had a talk about Easter Island. At one point, we were talking about the butterfly decline. Later this spring, we have a BU professor who's doing work on deep fake videos and how can we recognize those? I don't know if any of you have seen some of the stuff that's out. I was scrolling on Facebook, and all of a sudden, I see somebody looks like they're pouring some ice cream into a cone, and then all of a sudden that ice cream turns into a kitten. I'm guessing that's not real, but so help us understand, how does that happen? How do they do that, and how do we recognize it? Because it can be really put in the wrong hands, can be really very devastating. So our YouTube channel offers again all of our Friday night programs, but also if there's something going on in the skies that are particularly interesting, like a lunar eclipse. Actually, just about a year ago, there was a lunar eclipse, and Jenny Cartie, who actually is our speaker tonight, is our Livestream astronomer, did a time lapse, and here you can see the ember covering it. Eventually, you'll see the exposure change, so that we can actually see the blood moon, and you'll also notice that the world did not end, as is often the procrastination there. And then, again, this is happening because the Earth is getting between the sun and the moon. And then finally it moves sufficiently away that we'll turn the exposure back again. So now we have nearly 14,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. Including, again, the people that will literally watch from around the world. There's often a woman who lives in Adelaide, Australia, who will, she's actually she just finished breakfast in Australia and is cleaning up and watching our programs. So anyway.
Watch what magnesium does to your bowels.
Okay,
if you had to wipe
stop that and move back here. So again, we're very fortunate to have access to people that have deep knowledge on a wide range of topics. And particularly, we're very fortunate here at Kopernik to have Jenny Cartie, who wears about 18 or 19 different hats, but one of which is has done a lot of work with VR. Actually, we run a VR camp during one of our summer camps, and so I think Jenny sort of got started with it, much like everybody else does. Hey, this is a neat game to play with, but now we're turning it into a teaching resource. And so, Jenny, if you're close to being ready, all right, we also got to mic you up here. So give us a moment. We got to do it. Yep. I'll get it. Ready? And there we go.
Everyone. Welcome to Kopernik Observatory and Science Center. We're so happy to have you tonight.
as Drew said, this has been one of my both hobbies and projects here at Kopernik to implement virtual reality in our classroom spaces. And this journey tonight is going to focus on a history of VR and why it's important. And it'll inform us why we're not there yet in the mass market of the world. Why you don't see these, even today with how advanced they are, everywhere yet. And they're certainly not integrated into our lives the same way a smartphone is. So let's dive in. So VR is about immersion. If we could assemble virtual reality into one word, true virtual reality is ultimate immersion. Now, arguably, you can't achieve that. You can't achieve mapping out true reality, at least with our current technology, of course, to one-to-one, how we experience day-to-day life. But that's the goal. That's the end goal of this process in getting us to true VR. And why is that the end goal? We're going to discover that today. But what does immersion mean to you? I think that word can mean all sorts of things. So if anyone wants to share what that word means to you. Any thoughts out there? Oh, hi, Tom.
Multi-sensory.
Multi-sensory, that's really important. So it's a sensory experience. And I think that's our lives, right? That's humanity. That's life on Earth. It's a sensory experience. So that's great. What else? Any other thoughts about immersion? Someone's all throw out there. Maybe you've read a really good book and you've just been engrossed in it. We often call that we're immersed in this novel, right? And as we read the book, our brain's putting together all sorts of images. It's imagining what's going on through those words on the page. So immersed through books. You can immerse yourself in a really good show or movie.
Or games, too.
Or of course, games, as we'll see today. So yeah, immersion can mean a lot of things, and it can mean a lot of experiences, but all of it incorporates our senses. So I'd love to hear some guesses about this sketch here. This is a patent. Let's throw out some dates. When do you think this patent was put in place? Yes.
Let's say 2020.
2020? All right. Any other thoughts? Let's hear some other dates. 1859. Love it. 1880. Let's do one more. Anyone got one? Oh, going back to Da Vinci. All right. All right, those are some great. So that's a great spectrum of time that we have to work with. But we're going to start with this idea here. Or rather, not start with it, but we're going to keep it in mind as we continue to explore. So for a lot of this, we're going to go in chronological order, and we're going to take a trip way back in time, starting with 17,000 years ago. It's that trope, yes. You can always probably take a subject as far back into human history as you like, but I think there's truth, very, very much truth to this. I'm just going to take that in for a second. This is a cave painting from 17,000 years ago in caves in France. And while you can't actually visit the caves with the original paintings in them, they are still there, but you can't visit those. You can. They basically mapped out a full recreation of it, so you can visit a replica of that cave. I'm sure you can imagine why that became a problem, unfortunately. Why someone would want to ruin 17,000-year-old cave paintings, I do not know. But anyways, if you're into astronomy, this might look familiar. Yes, exactly right. This is the Pleiades, or Seven Sisters, and This is Taurus the Bull. Or at least what we say is, it would now today, Taurus. Back then, they probably had another name for this bull. But yeah, and then possibly, this one's more disputed, possibly a reference to Orion over here. There's 4 stars, though. Was there another star back then? Maybe. So Pleiades up here, 6 stars. That's about what we can count today as well, except on the clearest of nights. And if you have really good eyes, you might be able to get 7. In truth, this is an open star cluster. This was an image taken by one of our Kopernik Astronomical Society members, George Normandin, and actually at Cherry Springs State Park, which is a wonderful place to go check out sometime. But
I've literally been there.
oh, awesome!
So,
Yeah, it's a beautiful place, right? So this shows you that the star cluster is many stars, which is often the case. These are baby stars spreading out into space, starting to form their own solar systems. But the brightest stars are the ones we're talking about here. Those are the ones visible to the naked eye. And these bright ones, still readily visible today. Gotta remember, I have my pointer up here for a reason. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are the nice bright ones. Then this section here is the 6th. What we would see this as the 6th. These stars are really close together, and over time they've gotten closer and closer. So today and 17,000 years ago, not too different. Go back 100,000 years and they were much further apart. And so some historians theorize that this idea of 7 sisters being so prevalent across cultures throughout our history, the reason for that is because they could count 7 stars. But once we had recorded history, there was only 6 stars, but the legend and the culture continued. So that's not for certain, but there's a chance that that's how this worked. And it goes to show you how storytelling is so important for us, how important it is to communicate our realities with each other. That's a huge power of humanity, and it's how we've been able to do so many great and terrible things. And our realities don't always match up either, right? So the power of communication is so important here, and that power also is a sensory experience. How we share our worlds, our realities, is sensory to us, and then we pass that along through sensory experiences as well. So that's why we reach so far back in time, and also that nice connection to astronomy as well. All right, big jump. So we're not going to go through all those 17,000 years, but instead, 18th century now. And this is now where we're going to start to piece together the technologies and techniques associated with what we understand virtual reality to be. Either headsets from the past or even headsets today. That's what we're going to piece together here. All right. So let's meet our friend Robert Barker here. Robert Barker invented the panorama. Barker was a painter, not necessarily an inventor, but we're talking about inventing a technique, a painting style. And in 1792, he coined this term, panorama. Pan meaning all, arama meaning view. We combine that, and we get all view. And here's his first all view, a painting of Edinburgh, Scotland. The goal of the panorama is to take in a scene. A lot of these panoramas were landscapes. You take in a scene all at once and record it. Ideally, 360 degrees around you. And these panoramas during this era became super popular because it was a way for someone to experience something beyond their reach. It's 18th century. You're not going to be traveling too much. So you got to experience these places. They'd set these large paintings up in this big cylindrical room, and you could stand in the middle and you can look around as if you were there. Now, of course, not too long after this, as we enter the 19th century, we get photography. And almost immediately, because of how popular panoramas were, photographers were like, we're going to try and make a panoramic camera too, so that we can capture real light and real scenes. So that took off as well. This is the first example of a what we call panorama today. So that was the big 18th century advancement. Now we're going to the 19th century. And with each step, you'll notice we get a boom of this technology. So we have Ada Lovelace. And she's known to be the first programmer. And throughout this show, we'll be piecing together some, maybe of the more obvious technologies that we need to make devices like this. But I'm highlighting individuals that also brought in an element to the virtual reality piece. And Ada Lovelace worked on a concept for a computer, a very early computer. And I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name of the inventor of said computer, but the idea was for it to do basic calculations, mathematical calculations. But as Ada explored this, and she was hired to translate a paper and pass that along to this inventor. Here's her quote, one of her notes off to the side. Supposing, for instance, that the fundamental relations of pitch sounds in the science of harmony and of musical composition were susceptible of such expression and adaptations, the engine, meaning this computer, might compose elaborate and scientific pieces of music of any degree of complexity or extent. Does that sound like anything today? Creating something, a computer creating something. That's, well, you don't necessarily have to take it as far as what we call artificial intelligence or generative AI. This can also be pointing to things like something modern as well, like you got GarageBand on your Mac, let me make some music. That's what we're talking about here, going beyond the compute, I am a calculator, this is my job, I do math. Going beyond that, and now, wait, she's already thinking about, in this era, computers can be used for possibly even more than that. And that's a very modern idea to exist in the 19th century. So the first programmer, Ada Lovelace. And now we have Charles Wheatstone. And he is the inventor of the stereoscope. So a physicist and inventor from 1938. And really explained the concept of binocular vision. So stereoscopy, or binocular vision, is what we have. We have two eyes, right? And a nice little experiment we can do with stereoscopy, if you hold your thumb out, arm's length in front of you, and blink back and forth, left, right, what do you notice about your thumb? It moves, it shifts, right? And we all know that. We know the idea of parallax, this concept that one eye is seeing one image, the other eye is seeing a slightly different image. And that gives us depth perception. It lets us experience the world in 3 dimensions. And this is a very powerful trait because we can easily navigate the world even a task that we take for granted, like driving, right? There's a lot of depth perception going on when it comes to driving. It's not, of course, impossible to drive without depth perception, but it lets us navigate and understand how far away objects are from us. And our brain's just doing those calculations constantly. We don't even really notice. But that ability to process a 3D image is critical to how we experience the world visually. So he invented the stereoscope, and this was his apparatus. One image here for the right eye, a slightly different drawn image over here for the left eye. And then we have two mirrors that are reflecting that image into a lens here, into a lens there, so that you can see one image per eye. And when those are combined, your brain translates that into a 3D image. Now, David Brewster, major inventor, created all kinds of things, including this, if you're into physics, Brewster's angle, or if you have sunglasses. He pioneered polarization. And the way sunglasses work is they're taking a very specific angle of reflection and glare from the sun and canceling it out. So if you like your sunglasses, thank David Brewster. If you like kaleidoscopes, thank David Brewster. And if you liked your Viewmaster growing up, thank David Brewster. Not that he invented the Viewmaster, but invented the portable stereoscope, which inspired the Viewmaster. Here's what that looked like. Again, image, and lenses to focus them to your eye. Basically a Viewmaster. 1849. The Viewmaster came out in 1939, so as a mass-produced product.
Technically speaking, he could also. Technically speaking, he sort of invented 3D glasses, like take the stereoscope plus sunglasses, mash them together, boom, 3D glasses.
Exactly, right? These are just, I mean, honestly, you look at these devices up here. We haven't quite gotten to that patent yet, but this is getting pretty close. You're not mounting it to your head. You are just holding it up in front of your eyes. But it's this box with images in it and lenses that you look through. We already have some level of the design at work here. So this is Brewster's stereoscope. Oh, we got a second one in there. So we have the stereoscope. Now we're going to think about anaglyph 3D. Because once the stereoscope was invented, everyone was trying to think of ways of, okay, how do we make this easier? That you don't need as much of an apparatus. Maybe you just need some colored filters to give you a left and right image. And, oh, thanks, Drew. Perfect. We're going to pass out some 3D glasses.
Knew it. How did I know that?
And these are yours, of course, to take home. The nice thing about anaglyph 3D glasses is that they work on any screen. They work on printed. If you have a printed anaglyph image, that works. They're very accessible, and this technology is something that was developed in the late 19th century. So it's been around for a long time, but it's super effective and accessible. And I'll grab one too. Thank you. I actually forgot to bring in I have it on my desk, but my mom recently found my original pair of anaglyph glasses that I got for Spy Kids 3D.
Yeah.
Not a great movie, but kind of cool. Like in that was a very pivotal 3D movie for that time. So let's see. How's the text look? Any 3D effect on that text with these?
Yep.
Maybe a mild effect. Yeah, I'll just hold mine up. All right. Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Oh, there we go. Thanks, Drew. Yeah, these are the Spy Kids 3D ones. I can't believe she still had them around. Anyways, so it's funny, when I ran my summer camp, yeah, I think it was this most recent one last year for 2025, and I brought these glasses out. Some of the kids hadn't tried them before, and when they saw this text on the screen before I gave them the glasses, they just, I think they said it looked like the TikTok logo, and I'm like, oh, it does. And I had to remember to look at the TikTok logo with these sometimes. Anyways, let's journey into Anaglyph 3D. Let's make sure your glasses are working. If you blink your eye back and forth, you might notice some highlights to this text. I think I should have adjusted the left opacity a little bit more, but the right really pops out. Yep. So we see how there's this combined image and how the color filters are playing a role to show us one thing or the other per eye. So I'm going to take you through some imagery, some stuff you've seen tonight to start with, so you can kind of compare it to that real-world experience. And this is just the entrance to Kopernik. Stand over here. All right, next up, the store. And the effect is relatively subtle. Sometimes it's easy to overdo 3D images, especially anaglyph ones where things really pop at you. But if you notice how you experience depth perception in real life, if you take just even right now, observe things around you, it is subtle. Things aren't like, oh, popping out in your face all the time. So that subtlety is important. It's a nice, careful balance. There's the ISS. That one does pop out a little bit. The solar panels jutting out. And you can see that if you haven't yet. The ISS model is straight through that door in the lunch area. You'll see it hanging in our Astronaut Hall of Fame.
Actually, if you sort of move your head to the left or the
yes,
right,
that
you actually
too.
see that it looks like it's moving.
It's okay. We can do some dances in your chairs. That's fine. Because there will be other images that effect is really prominent, that kind of motion. There's the observatory. And the STEM van. Here's a walk through New York City.
Yep, been there too.
I thought I had audio on this. Just bear with me a sec. Because I'm not too worried about on this one, but I will be on HDMI splitter. No, that's fine. All right. Maybe I did remove the audio. Oh, okay. All right. Well, some of these I know for sure don't. Like this one does not have audio. So that's the Mercury capsule at the Intrepid Museum. And the Intrepid Museum in New York City also has the prototype Space Shuttle Enterprise. There's a 3D capture of Enterprise there. And a little video as well. Again, a little subtle, but the effect is there.
Aw. My glasses fell off.
All right, now we're going beyond and looking at some objects in the solar system in 3D. And NASA and other space agencies do this a lot. They will capture in 3D. That depth data is very important. It's how you can measure things. It's how you can make sure your rover explores safely and doesn't go over obstacles that it's not designed for. So here's Mercury's Kuiper crater. This crater's about 40 miles in diameter. And it was a big impact whenever you see those mountains in the center of a crater. That implies a large impact. Copernicus crater on the moon is the same way. It has mountains in the center. And basically, it's because things liquefy. If you think of a water droplet dropping into a larger body of water, that center pops out. That's why we get that with craters. So that pops out at you there. This is Earth, Hurricane Alberto in 2000, and you can really see some depth in that eye of the storm there. Earth's moon, and this one does have a fun wiggle effect as you move back and forth. The Mars Pathfinder mission from 1997. And as I said, all rovers come equipped with 3D cameras. So just like we use our eyes and that depth perception to navigate around, the rover also needs that depth perception. So like there's this big bold, now Pathfinder was a little RC car sized rover. So it's not going to be navigating too much further beyond this point because there's just lots of rocks around. But that's the idea. There's this big boulder over here. There's smaller rocks over there. These tiny wheels aren't going to be able to navigate it, so it would have to find the ideal path. Pathfinder was mostly just to prove that you could land something, a rover specifically, and drive it on Mars. Then we had the Mars exploration rovers. And these really started to get kitted out with instruments and gear. And you can see the way this one landed. If you look to the back here, it had this big balloon design where it bounced on the surface and eventually came to a stop. So it was like this big bouncy ball. And then it was able to roll off, and you can see the tracks there. There was 2 Mars exploration rovers, Spirit and Opportunity. Both landed in 2004. Spirit, I think 2008 or 9 is when they lost Spirit. And Opportunity actually kept going till 2018 for a long time. They only had 90-day missions originally. Beautiful capture there. This is assembled from multiple data sources. It's not like a rover drove up to the edge of this canyon on Mars and took a picture. But the 3D effect is certainly there, and it's almost like you're standing on the cliffside of this canyon. Yeah. Val Marineris is the largest canyon in the solar system. It's bigger than the Grand Canyon. In fact, it's about the width of the United States. So it's kind of this huge crack in the surface of Mars. And this one does have that depth effect too, where it's almost like you can look between the different layers of the canyon. And then here's Mars Science Laboratory Curiosity. And this was a step even beyond the Mars exploration rovers. Curiosity landed in 2012 and was a car-sized rover. And if you look to the back there, you can see the tracks of the rover. So these are the dunes of Mars out here. You can even see way back here, there's 2 tracks from the wheels. So big car-sized rover, it's able to navigate a lot more of Mars than the other ones. But again, because of these 3D cameras, it's able to successfully map out and even autonomously drive to some degree, which is helpful when when you have like a 7-minute communication gap, well, really 14-minute to and from. All right. So you don't need your 3D glasses at this point. You can hold on to them, of course, and you can even take them home. As I said, all you need to do is, if I go back, and if anyone wanted to take a picture, that's all you search for. You just search for that word anaglyph, and you'll get unlimited options. And there's also some really nice ways dipping into the modern era of spatial technology. There's an app for especially smartphones that have multiple cameras on them. On iOS, it's called Spatialify. And you can take spatial imagery with your smartphone. And there's a setting for it in your slider. And then with that Spatialify app, you can turn it into any version of 3D you want. Side-by-side 3D. You can turn it into anaglyph, which is how we got the these images here. And that video as well, that was just me walking around New York with my phone. And then I translated it to anaglyph. So there's so many options. And as I said, like NASA especially, all the space agencies take this data in. All right, it's 20th century. All right, so another big jump. That was a lot of technology that popped up in the 19th century. A lot of techniques for achieving depth perception. But stereoscopic imagery alone is not VR. And the 20th century would have brought us the concepts, getting us closer to our modern interpretation of virtual reality. And that's where we start to bring in methods of input. Of course, you're talking like better display experiences, especially as we head into the late 90s. And during the next talk, we'll talk about all that happened during the modern VR explosion. But let's start also with an idea of simulation. So raise your hand if you know Edwin Link. If you heard the name, even if you heard the name Link before in our area. It's okay, I see lots of hands up, good. So Edwin Link developed the Link trainer. He was an inventor and who moved to Binghamton, New York in 1910. And during this era, this age of aviation, there was he saw a really critical need to be able to effectively train pilots with similar experiences to being in the air, minimizing the risk to pilots and trainers while in true flight. So he saw that need in this time and developed the flight simulator to help train pilots. And the technology here that was used was basically piano parts. Lots of different piano parts and components. This is he's a big figure in our local area. And in our summer camps, actually, as you may have noticed on our website, we do get grants from the Link Foundation to support our summer camps. So Link's legacy is very prevalent throughout our area, and you can go visit the a Link trainer. Sadly, it's no longer functional. At least around 10 years ago it was at the Most Museum in Syracuse. You could actually try it out. Last I heard, though, it did stop working. But there, at least you can see it there. I think they still have one. It's been a while since I've been at the airport, but I think they still have one at the airport. Yes.
Is there one at the Roberson Museum?
Oh, there's one at the Roberson Museum as well. So yeah, there's lots of them that you can see around our area. And I just wish that one at Most was still functional. There's a video on YouTube that you can look up of it functioning, and it really very similar to modern. Lost lost my train of thought. Very similar to modern simulators. If you've been in any time in the last couple of decades, the way it moves around is not too different. So Edwin Link, critical figure in developing simulation technology and selling a sensory experience similar, and for something as critical as training. It's not just as a fun thing to try out. And we have our modern flight simulators are very accurate and fairly one-to-one with a real in-flight experience. And that brings in a lot of our compute technology that we know of today, of course. This didn't have any of that. This was all a full analog system. But pretty amazing what could be accomplished with that. Oh, there's that link trainer. I've always found it quite cute. Oh, that's not right. We're not going to 21st century yet. So, Morton Heilig, we made a big jump into the 1960s, so from 1920s to 1960s. In that time in between, you do have like the mass-produced ViewMaster. Again, something you do just hold up to your face, and it displays stereoscopic imagery. The advantage to the ViewMaster is it wasn't just one image, right? With our previous stereoscopes, you did have a single left and a single right image. And that combined into one image in your mind. The ViewMaster had a rotary system where you could cycle through multiple 3D effects. And I remember looking through my first ViewMaster. I believe it was at my grandma's at the time. And I didn't know why it looked different, but I knew it looked different. And well, I can't say for sure that's where my interest was sparked in this. It definitely was like exciting to me that like, wait, I've seen pictures before, but I'm looking through this thing that looks like binoculars and something looks more real. That impact is felt. And with a lot of the content we do enjoy today, on a flat screen, most of the time it's fine. Sometimes you're just listening to it in the background. But it's when you want to have the really immersive experiences that 3D effect becomes important. And making that more accessible is our goal. So our friend here, Morton Heilig, developed this sensorama and the telesphere mask. And he saw this. Like, he was a filmmaker. He saw the power of being able to create 3D film. So, like, this is stuff, like, that's even exciting today, right? Like, the new Avatar movie just came out. Avatar's always been, like, a big push into 3D. 2010, I mean, we'll certainly talk about it next time, but we even still see that today, where with really visually stunning experiences, that added layer of 3D, well done, subtle 3D, is really powerful. So this is why he's a pioneer in this space, because he saw that before it became as popular as it is today. So he invented first the sensorama in the 1950s. What do I do with my... I lost it. Oh, it's over here. So this is the sensorama here. Is the patent for it. And it wasn't just visual. It wasn't just a 3D display. His hope was to also bring in other senses as well, which is really not even something we see as accessible today. So even ahead of his time in that way, where you have touch sensation. Wind would blow in your face. I think one of the experiences on here was like riding on a motorcycle. So while you're riding, the chair would vibrate, bringing in some haptic experiences. because this didn't take off, like there weren't, in the 1950s, there weren't sensoromas everywhere. He didn't quite get to the point of like having the smell experience, but that was his thought too, is you would bring in smell into it when you're driving around through a specific location. Now the important piece here is this is all just 3D imagery. It's 3D film. You get a left and right image in your eye. He had this really, he invented a camera technology that would enable him to record 3D film. So one camera here, one camera there, and then you roll that film through 2 separate displays inside this big device. But you're not looking around, right? That's when we think about modern VR headsets. This thing is designed to look around as you look around and track all that motion. You're not doing that in this. It's not even just a little bit, like you can't even, while you're in this thing, you can't even like look off to the side a little. You have your image in front of you. And it is immersive, but it's not even what we would call 3 DOF, or 3 degrees of freedom, where you can look around like this. You definitely can't get that 6 degrees of freedom where you're walking around. Modern headsets can do all that. This is just 3D, so we would not call this virtual reality. A lot of virtual reality pioneers, both in the past and present, would not consider that just a 3D display VR. So there's some concepts going on here where we're bringing more senses into the mix. But again, still not getting there quite yet. And we've also, as we go through these slides, I wanted to mention, we've also entered the area where we're beyond public domain. So I couldn't, there's a really nice archive you can visit called the Immersive Archive. And understandably, a lot of what they've done, because they've invested a ton into it, is copyrighted. So you can certainly go view it online on Vimeo and everything, but because we live stream this and stuff, I'm always careful about the copyright stuff. So just know it. Visit the Immersive Archive if you want to explore some of the video that exists, the museum footage from this era. And then he developed the telesphere mask in 1960 and patented that. And this is what we would consider the first HMD, the first head-mounted display. There it is. So 1960 is when this design, when he patented this design of headset. And it never really fully came into fruition. There was like a prototype of sorts about it, but because Sensorama didn't take off, unfortunately, there just clearly wasn't quite the interest yet to really get this going. But I think the patent speaks for itself. Like, it's like almost 1-to-1. I would say like this looks pretty similar to the 2010 era of VR and the prototype headsets that started coming out then. For this device, this patent purely states it would be a 3D video viewer, or even 3D image viewer, of course. So basically taking Sensorama and scaling it way down. So he was already thinking like, I want to miniaturize this. I want to make it smaller and make it so you could just pick it up at home and use it. So really a contemporary idea there. All right, so 1960, we already have like a really solid design for VR headsets and how we even have them today. Now we have Ivan Sutherland's. And Ivan Sutherland patented and invented the Sword of Damocles. Quite the name. And that's it. Ivan there pictured with the Sword of Damocles. And he was a computer scientist and a pioneer in computer graphics. Think about any graphical user interface you use today. He pushed forward with that. And this is the first motion-tracked head-mounted display is what he invented. So taking in what he learned and developed in graphical interfaces and starting to apply it, okay, now we want to map this into something akin to the previous headset we saw. But it's not just about viewing stereoscopic imagery. It's also about tracking motion. And that's a big piece to the puzzle. Now we're starting to realize, okay, we're bringing ourselves into this virtual space now. It's not just viewing kind of a disembodied experience of a camera view. Now we're saying, okay, I can come into this space and I can navigate it. That's a big step in immersion. So this is kind of the major step that we know as immersive virtual reality today. And the way this worked, it also, of course, needed all the major computing steps that were taken during this era, because this was hooked up to a computer and it was creating a virtual image. A very basic, like, they kind of designed a room model with some like basic blocks for furniture, but that's what it was. It was blocks, linear blocks. And the way this worked, you see these tubes on the side. This did use cathode ray tube technology. These tiny, almost like miniaturized cathode ray tubes on the side. This was military technology. It was, there 3 of these were made, these apparatuses. And he got one of them. He worked at Harvard, so he had some pull to get one of these headsets, and then the other 2 went to the military. It was originally designed to provide some kind of imagery for cameras that were placed underneath helicopters. So the pilot would wear this device and see some image represented of the camera below the helicopter. And Ivan learned about this. Ivan Sutherland is a very amazing, interesting person. I recommend looking, like, his story is pretty incredible. And the reason I say that is, like, through some of the archival footage, and he is still alive today, you can learn about how he had some like grant that he got through the CIA. He had pull, clearly, having worked at Harvard and just in this industry of pioneering graphical interfaces. But on top of all of this, and this headset, which didn't take off, there's also a really good archival video you can watch about why it didn't take off and why it just kind of stopped here for a little while, and they didn't keep developing this technology. The primary reason was because there was just too much limitation. Now, of course, you run into the argument of like, wait, but what if we kept pushing? But it's the constant issue of funds versus what we want to do in an area of research. He also had many other interests that would make a greater impact during this era. So that's basically what cut this off. But it provided that tiny step, and that's what we keep seeing here, tiny, tiny steps to get us to true VR. Kind of fun connection too here. He founded the company Evans and Sutherland, and that is, there's subsidiaries of Evans and Sutherland. One of them is COSM, and from that is Digistar. And if you've been in a Digistar planetarium before, which is probably likely if you visited a lot of museums, that's where that comes from. He helped develop the initial graphical experience for computerized planetariums. So that's that company there. All right. Here's the headset in action. You can see those piped cathode ray tubes on the side providing the image. Very tethered experience. There is the display. a box. And the next step, once there isn't footage of this, but there is some pictures that you can find online of they were able to push this a little further and add a couple more boxes to this box. But we can watch it one more time. That's what they saw, and that's how this headset worked. So you can see that cable going straight up, and the cables coming off that were tied into the computer system. And this is kind of neat too, because this dips into augmented reality, or mixed reality, a little bit, which is what Meta today calls this headset. This is an XR, mixed reality headset, that can bring elements or full camera views of the real world and mix things together with virtual elements. So these were clear displays, and the electrons were mapped out into them from the cathode ray tube. And so you could see through it, and so we're bringing virtual reality and augmented reality into this discussion now. All right, so big step. Now, Sutherland, like I said, moved on to create his own company. He worked at many companies in the computing industry over time. Among them, worked with Xerox as well. And in the I believe it was 1980s, he worked with Lynn Conway on this concept called very large-scale integration, or VLSI. And this idea is foundational to all of our modern computing. Your phone in your pocket, these VR headsets up here, this computer, this technology enabled modern microchips. If we just think alone, the basic concept that we can take from this, it's how we fit billions and billions of transistors on microchips, and we do that at scale now. So chips in modern smartphones have RAM, they have your storage blocks, your CPU, your GPU, all integrated into one thing. And the reason that can be done is because of this process. So even back then, they were thinking, okay, we need to make an integrated circuit. And make something that incorporates everything all in one. And that miniaturization took us so far, as we see today. So she was a computer scientist, an electrical engineer, a transgender rights activist, and she worked with Ivan Sutherland and developed the VLSI microchip design process. She reshaped the field of microchip design in the 1980s and really ushered in this era of modern computing and worked directly with Sutherland to do it. So yeah, that's why we have everything. It's really exciting. All right, now with all of that technology, all that was developed, all the techniques and technology that was developed, we come to this era where video gaming is also building up. We have Pong, we have Atari, we have Nintendo coming about with the Nintendo Entertainment System. So that's all happening in parallel too, and those are simulated experiences as well. And I could talk for hours and hours about video games. But that was a huge first step. Video games are very immersive, and they're only really today just becoming part of everyone's lives. How many of you have a game on your phone? Oh, come on. No more of you have games on your phone. So we have games on our phones, we have games everywhere. And they're so prevalent now, but that only just really played out. Virtual reality is where video games were back in the 1980s, the 1970s and 80s, if not even a touch further back than that. So that's kind of the era. These are not in our lives yet, day to day. I'll be honest, I don't use my VR headset every day. Based on questions, when I asked the students at the Immersive Innovators Camp last year, some of those kids were using their headsets every day. That is kind of becoming their video gaming, day-to-day video gaming. And we can of course talk about what that means and what the content is in those virtual reality headsets. A big focus for us here at Kopernik is to push forward with experiences that are rich, educationally rich. And I don't want to get too much into that today, but part 2 is where we learn more about the VR classroom here at Kopernik. So let's get back to the Nintendo Virtual Boy. An interesting story, this. Now, we have the Virtual Boy up here. It's not quite the original Virtual Boy. This is what's called a Nintendo Classics Virtual Boy, which is Nintendo's trying to take it from the 1995 era when it released into the modern era so that we can play the games that were on this headset and they're not stuck to just collectors and museum pieces. It's a way to keep, just like anything, keeping movies alive, even just going back to like archaeology pieces, like it is museum, and over time we want to record this era just like anything else. So this device, the original one was a 32-bit tabletop video gaming device that was, of course, made by Nintendo, released in 1995, and it displayed stereoscopic 3D graphics. So you get your left and right image. These graphics are interactive in the sense that a controller, which was tethered to the device then, a controller could be used to play a game, just like you would on the Game Boy of that time, on the SNES or Nintendo 64, you would be playing a game inside the headset.
And eventually, more Nintendo stuff were to come.
Oh, so much.
For example.
So yeah, in motion tracking, right? So much out there to look forward to into the future. But this first step had major limitations because, one, the idea of virtual reality was already starting to filter out into the just general public. People were aware that things were being made and experiences were being made. I don't have it up here in this one just because we can only talk about so much. This is, despite it not being super common to have in a household, there was stuff happening, including NASA's VIEW program, which was a way to train astronauts inside a VR headset in the 1980s and into the 1990s. So that was all happening too. It was getting out there that this stuff existed. Interactive, motion capture, head-mounted displays, 3D views. Nintendo releases this. Let's just show you the ad, the commercial for the Virtual Boy. And let's make sure the audio works too. It does not. Okay. So we need to find out why. Those are my speakers. Yeah, it should be going through. Audio's on. And that's up too? Yeah. I mean, I can always pass it through my speakers as well. It's not going to sound great, but it's an option. Oh wait, I do hear something. Let's say, okay, let's try again. Because we did hear something there.
The third dimension.
Oh, can you crank it even more? Yeah, oh, that's max. Let's just temporarily crank. Oh, I'll turn my mic off.
With its own brain, its own voice, its own legs. There's only one problem.
It needs your eyes. Virtual Boy. See it now in 3D.
So that was certainly energy that was surrounded video gaming back then. But I don't know, like that's like an anti-commercial. Like, I'd prefer to keep my eyes, thank you. And then when people actually got this at home, so that they went out and purchased it, it was a complete experience. It hurt people's eyes, it gave you headaches. Just that, I mean, my hope is I can get that set up so that have a look through the lenses of this headset, keeping in mind this is based on more modern interpretations of VR. But I will say, after having used it, I'll turn it around here very carefully. Like, here, if I tilt out, this isn't like the worst height, but imagine sitting in a chair, your head gets up there. So you're going to have to, like, tilt your head down, turn the lens, that sounds better, maybe? All right. So, yeah. So it had everything. It was a all-in-one device, but it had to be stuck to a table. You had this tethered controller, and again, with the concepts of immersive VR out there, people got this at home, and it's like, wait, this is just a headache-inducing 3D image that's playing out in the display. So it did not meet people's expectations of what VR could be. And on top of that, it was uncomfortable. So we don't want to go as far as to say necessarily that a single device can outright just destroy a potential market, but Virtual Boy got pretty close to doing that. And there were other companies thinking about doing this. Sega had a VR headset called the VR1. That never came out because like this showed that the market wasn't there for something like this. So it's not true VR, but it has the shape of true VR. It has some concepts layered in there, and it's still an important step. Showing us that VR can make its way into people's homes, or at least some interpretation of it. So that kind of brings us to the end here. And if you look at this picture, you might notice, I took this the other night when we had a momentary clear sky. And what do you notice in the background? Orion. What's up here? There's Taurus. No Pleiades, because Pleiades was too high up in the sky. I couldn't quite get the angle right to work that in. But And actually Sirius, our brightest star, is right down here in Canis Major. So that kind of brings us as full circle as we can to this idea that VR is about storytelling. It's about sharing realities. It's about bringing us closer to an ultimate shared reality where we can pass experiences along to each other. And doing so, ideally, as carefully as we can, because that's what VR should be. It should not be replacing reality. That's not what, while some, I think, in this industry definitely want to see something like that happen, it should not replace reality. It should enhance our experiences and how we share realities, just like any medium of art and technology has done so in the past. It's a careful balance, and the right people have to be making the right decisions to make it happen. But that's where my fascination with VR exists, and where I hope it continues to grow as people develop these technologies. So I'll answer questions in just a second. I will say, if you want to learn more about our VR classroom, the future of virtual reality, getting into also the modern VR explosion, that's where we have part 2, which will be on May 22nd. And
Well, that's perfectly timed, isn't it?
it is. I love the 2s, right? That worked out really well.
Up to 1 to 22.
And then, exactly. And then the VR classroom, where you get to try, this is one of Kopernik's VR devices. We have 18 of these headsets. And you can try our VR classroom. We'll have that set up at 7 p.m., so starting things a little bit earlier so people can try the VR classroom out and what experiences we built for that device. So you'll learn about that as well. At this point, I'm happy to take any questions you have.
All right, all I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the microphone over so that the people in the live stream can hear your question.
Less of a question, but more like a comment. But I do find it interesting how now we have full body tracking suits that like full on one pieces that are like you zip it up and then it just tracks your whole body's motion, which normal VR just on its own can't do that right now. But I find it interesting that people have finally started to come out with in the market with full body tracking suits and not just physical trackers, like actual suits.
Yes, yeah. And that's certainly something we'll dip into in this next one, but just to briefly touch on it, there are all these more accessible ways starting to make it into the VR enthusiast space, where yeah, you can put a vest on, it'll have haptic feedback, it'll give you some more of the touch sensation, the touch sensory experience on top of visual, on top of what we'll talk about next time too is proprioception, which is a sense that we have. So bringing in all sorts of senses to sell this experience more and more. One thing I'll briefly mention too, and one thing we do have operational on our headsets, these things can track your hands without anything involved. And it's really good nowadays. So there's hand tracking without these controllers, but these are great too. They make body tracking systems. The more sensors they put on the headset, that's something like Meta, for example, wants to see happen. More sensors you put there, maybe you'll just be able to map out for full body tracking and not have any extra sensors on board. To do that really well nowadays, right now, you do need some of those extra sensors. So much can happen still, and we're going to continue to see that on top of all the miniaturization we hope to see as well.
Any other questions? Got one here.
Also, technically not a question, but a comment in general. I myself actually used to use a VR, the game like rhythm games. Well, take that plus blocks and you basically get Beat Saber.
Yes.
Saver? I don't know. Anyways, bye live chat. Yes, I know you're here.
So yes, absolutely. Some of those modern experiences are amazing. And among what's out there too is it's great for fitness. A lot of people use it for that. And Be Saber is an example of what I've used for some exercise because it is very engaging and fun, and you do work up a sweat. It's pretty cool. So yeah, that's a great example.
I know that there's some applications where people who may be unable to move,
Yeah.
and they like in a long-term care facility, it's actually a way to explore, get out and actually do some exploration, but through from your convalescent bed there.
So true. Like all the use cases for this that we didn't touch on today, because really what requires that is functional devices. But we are there now. We have really solid functional devices, and now everything's branching out into accessibility use cases, entertainment use cases, productivity. So yeah, it's incredible what we can do now and what we're starting to see.
And just a couple of comments. Zilla Smoke says, a great presentation. Half-Life Alyx was the greatest VR game experience I've ever had.
It is very impressive.
And
Definitely.
Power Beats VR is a great fitness game as well. So.
Yes, yeah, that one is very good. Yep.
Any other questions? Oh, hold on a second.
I was just thinking about when you were going back and looking at art, and this idea of, in the Renaissance, the kind of invention of perspective. But I was also thinking about how, just in two-dimensional art, how to render depth, that it seems like so much, your historical piece really got me thinking about our struggle to kind of build 3D realities in limited ways, through our limited capacity. But yes, I was just thinking about that. I don't know if you thought about that at all.
No, that's not a piece I really thought of, but it's so, yeah, that's another one that could totally fit in our chronology here and into our timeline, because that is so true. That's a technique that needed to be developed over time. Like when we looked at the cave painting, that's a very flat image. Maybe with some like hints to try to portray, okay, we know these stars are out there somewhere. But yeah, the idea of perspective is very important for this. And going back to Sutherland's, like that's something that he had to figure out when it came to computer graphical interfaces and mapping on flat displays, mapping something to a 3D perspective. Yeah, that's awesome.
Another question here.
To your knowledge, are we anywhere close to the kind of assistant technology like Gordy had on Star Trek to let the blind see?
Oh, that's really interesting, and that's another space that I guess we didn't really touch on during this talk. But I guess when we're talking about that level of technology too, that would be pretty pivotal for one, that important accessibility piece, and two, understanding in general how the brain creates images and what that could mean for VR in general. So yeah, that's kind of the other space of VR too, where we create imagery in our minds. Going back to the idea of a good book, right? But can we trick our mind enough, instead of using displays, can you trick your mind enough to push you into a different reality? That's another thought. That's more like longer term, what technology would we need to do that? And maybe it enters a space that we don't want to enter at all. But there's a good example of like, how do we take your camera views and put them inside to create images in the brain. It's not a technology I'm too well versed in, but I know there's steps that have been taken to advance that. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, people that are hearing impaired, sometimes you can use cochlear implants where they actually are doing something into the brain that actually provides some kind of way to actually hear.
Yeah.
Although a friend of mine who has one of those said, yeah, basically for the first couple of months you're just counting bits. You're trying to figure, trying to do that translation. But at some point, could they in fact do that into the, into the visual system?
Yeah, that's actually a great jumping off point too, because there are senses that are really difficult to access through external experiences. Like thinking about, okay, you're in a VR headset and you want to try and experience all the smells that you're encountering in this virtual world. How do you do that? Like, how do you have some kind of device that can, and people are working on it, but is it practical to have this device that can just blast smells at you of all different varieties, and how many do you include in that library? It becomes a big question, because some experiences like that are only accessible when you go somewhere. So maybe you have to trick the senses instead, and that's where it's about playing brain tricks in that way.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's watched the show Black Mirror. There's a lot of cutting edge technology, and it's all fringe right now, but it's cutting edge, and it could be a reality really soon.
Yeah, that's I don't want to go too much into the next talk, but yeah, for sure, that's exactly right. All those I know Black Mirror specifically has the issue of wait, this already exists. What do we do? Oh my gosh.
All right, well, Jenny, thank you once again for extraordinarily well-researched presentation. And we'll expect to see you all back here on May 22nd. Also want to, for those of you who may be new to Kopernik or haven't been here in a while, and unfortunately, normally what would happen at the end of a program is we would then, take you outside and have you look through our telescopes. That won't be happening today, but we can take you in and actually show you our scopes and show you some of the images that we've taken here. So if you're interested in doing that, we'll see. How about 9:35 local time? We'll meet out in the lobby, and then we'll have a group that will take you through our scopes and do that. Next week, you get to see Jenny again with a program on the spring skies and sort of the spring equinox preview. And I was going to say, anything you want to?
All I was going to say is if anyone wants to look through the lenses of the Virtual Boy and see what that era of gaming looked like, I will set that up so you can try it out. I'll probably put it on there's two good options. There's 3D Tetris and there's Galactic Pinball. So you can see the 3D effect at least.
All right, well, thanks again, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.